A flying black hat, a swinging white chair, hands just being thrown everywhere. Let's unpack Montgomery. Do we dare?
Hey, Auntie.
Hey, ladies. Hi, aunties. And hello, all of our guests out there tonight. We welcome you to the We Are Your Aunties show. And tonight we have something special because, as you all know, unless you've been living under a rock, I'm going to have to bring down the music just a little bit. Unless you've been living under a rock, you know what's been going down for the last few days. And it all started last Saturday in Montgomery, Alabama. So in case you weren't there, just to save us some words, we're going to go ahead and show you a short clip of what happened. But before we do that, I want to say, hey, Auntie Rosemary.
Hey,
Hey. So we've got lots and lots to unpack here, right?
Yeah.
So before we do, we're going to ask DY to roll the clip. So here we have a co-captain of a boat on the Alabama riverfront, Montgomery riverfront. He's asked these men to move their boat. They wouldn't. And the next thing you know, they jump him. They are beating this co-captain. His name is Damian Pickett. He is the senior deckhand, first mate, which makes him a co-captain. The boy in the water is 16 years old. His name was Aaron. They have not released his last name because, of course, he's a minor. And black people came to this man's defense, and these white people decide they're going to get in their boat and float away. But these men conduct their own form of citizen's arrest, which turns into a big brawl. And the man in the white stripe is confronted by this group. He fights back. The lady in the red dress is either trying to break it up or get involved. The man takes the white chair, swings on a man first, and then goes over and cracks the white lady in the head with the chair. So that's just a brief update for those of you who missed it, right?
Right. Oh my.
There's so much in this, but I want us to always come from the context of healing the wounds of American slavery, which you can get on Audible. I'll read it to you, or on Amazon. And in my book, I talk about a particular wound and a set of wounds that come with it. And I know we saw every last one of them at this event.
Yes, we did.
And the wound that we saw that was the primary is called contained rage, right? Hi, guys. We see our Facebook users there. Contained rage, right? And along with contained rage, there's so many things that we could unpack with it. But understand that when we're talking about these wounds, we're talking about stuff that's in our DNA based on enslavement, right? Our ancestors and enslavement. So with the contained rage comes bitterness, anger at God, loss of faith, no trust, misplaced trust, easily annoyed, irritated, weariness, and suicidal thoughts. I think we saw some major weariness unfold there. Like, we are tired and we ain't taking no more. What do you think, lady?
Oh, they were past tired.
Yes. I think we all
Past tired. Hundreds of years worth of tired. Hundreds of years worth of tired is what I think we saw unfold. So it was interesting because in the beginning I said, you know, the black hat toss, right? The man who was wearing the hat, first of all, the man who was conducting his own business, minding his business, doing his job on that dock, Damian Pickett, 40 plus years old, with medical condition, hypertension and diabetes, And so essentially what we see is we see people coming to his rescue, which we don't see every day with Black people. Anytime we're involved in something, you know, people say, call the police show up, and they do us worse than what we're already going through, right? Generally speaking. But the man who swung the chair, his name is Reggie Gray. And so my question is, I mean, there's so much to unpack here. So let's just take it step by step. So let's go all the way back to the historical origins of what's in Montgomery, and particularly on that dock.
Yes.
So I went to CNN because I already knew that there was some historical context there, right? That would bring this on. But even if you don't know a whole lot about history, you have to know that Montgomery is where the whole bus boycott took place, where Rosa Parks sat on the bus because she was tired. Somebody wanted her seat and she wouldn't get up. And that led to a whole bus boycott, right? But then before that, let's go all the way back to when they were bringing enslaved Africans into the colonies, into the country at that point. And they would start them off at New Orleans. They would either put them on a rail train or they would put them on one of these boats, and they would transport them up the river to Montgomery, Alabama, to that very dock where all of this took place. So it's just interesting, right? That it all unfolded there. I don't think there are any accidents. I just don't. I don't think this was a coincidence at all. I mean, spiritually speaking, especially. And then they would take the enslaved and they would deboard them and walk them all around. They called it Commerce Street. Imagine that. Because what is commerce? Commerce is product, right? That's your money that you're making off of commerce, off of product. They would parade them up and down Commerce Street and then later sell them on an auction block, and essentially separating them from family, because remember, they're brought from New Orleans. And they didn't pick, you know, I'm going to take this whole family and transport them down. No, they just took whichever of the enslaved they considered prime slaves, right? So we have that history at Montgomery, and just a history of racism. And not 100 miles away, about 93 miles away is Birmingham, Alabama, right? And 150 kilometers for those, or kilometers for those who are in the UK, right? Because we never learned metrics, not the way we were supposed to. America's a rebel. We just said, well, you know what? We're just going to keep our form of measurement. But anyway, 100 miles away, less than 100 miles away, is where the 4 little girls were bombed in the church, in the 16th Street Baptist Church in 1963. And they would always have incidents of bombings in that area. But if you watch Spike Lee's 4 Little Girls, I recommend it. I highly recommend that. If we could put that in the chat, that would be great. 4 Little Girls by Spike Lee. It really outlines exactly, it gives us such an up close, an intimate view of these families that were left behind, and the little girls whose futures never came to be. And you know, if you know Spike Lee as an auteur, he is just completely all in on the details and the graphic details and all of that. So, you know, trigger warning, there's a lot in there that you might have to fast forward past, but very, very, very worth watching. I mean, I'm a big Spike Lee fan, and that has to be one of my favorite documentaries on the planet.
Thank you, viewer. Appreciate you.
Yes, thank you so much. 4 Little Girls by Spike Lee. Very, very worth watching. So ladies, let's just begin to unpack this little by little, because there's so much personally.
It is. You're right.
That we feel, you know, and that we think about what happened. I'm going to just be quiet now, just allow you just to have your say.
I have to get this out because, you know, there's so many memes. We're laughing and we're joking. There's some funny, there's some creativity out there. And you know what? Yeah, that old saying, you know, you got to laugh to keep from crying. Because for people to be so sick and tired to just say, no, we're not doing this anymore. You know, and this, for them to just feel like, well, you did this to me and I'm just going to knock you out, and everybody else is jumping on this man. What is that saying? What are you doing? Is this something that's down from the DNA of your ancestors?
Yes.
Privileged to do what you want? Everybody's policeman?
Very interesting. And one of the things that I heard in what you said is that there was a complete lack of value in the authority that this man carried as a worker in that situation. He is co-captain to a white captain on this boat. 227 white people were on this boat that was trying to dock, right, at the Montgomery dock, riverfront dock. And he was telling them, what was it called? A platoon ship, something like that.
Yeah.
Anyway, they have their own boat that they were trying to dock. This family that started this fight with this officer or this captain, they were trying to dock their boat in a place they had no business, that was illegal to dock. And he had asked them several times, you can see it in the body language in the exchange, to move their boat so that the river boat could come through, which is, a city government boat.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't. And then, the white officer calls out over the PA system, come move your boat, whoever's boat this is. Thank you, pontoon boat, move your boat. And they wouldn't move it. And in fact, they decided then to attack this Black man instead of just cooperating and moving it out of the way. So it's just really, what is that? 22nd March, Martin Luther King Jr. led thousands of nonviolent demonstrators to the steps of the Capitol of Montgomery, Alabama. That's right. Speaking of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., I cannot help but point out this fact. And then I'm going to throw it to Genoa. So Auntie Rosemary was saying that people are being very creative, and they are. There are a lot of memes out there, videos, jokes, pictures, and just a lot out there that's expressing our satisfaction in what took place when essentially these white people got what they deserved, right? In the minds of most of us. Now, there may be some that think, oh, that was just a little bit too much. I haven't heard from that person yet. But the one thing I did not like in all the creativity out of everything that's been going on out there is that they took the monument, the statue, the monument of Dr. Martin Luther King, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., the big one where he's evolving from the rock of oppression or whatever, and they put the chair in his hand. And to me, that taints his legacy. It tarnishes his legacy, because his legacy was clearly nonviolent. And so, we have to be careful, because we could end up reconstructing history in a way too. We're so upset about what's happening in Florida and all over the country, where they're taking our books and taking our history off the shelves, but then we're here reconstructing that history as well. So we just have to watch ourselves. And that's all I really wanted to say about that. Go ahead, Auntie Genoa. Tell us what's on your mind.
Well, it was crazy because I had opened up my I was online looking at some other stuff, and this thing popped up, and I'm like, what's going on here? And so when I clicked on it and I saw what's going on, I'm like, oh my Jesus, this is like, wow. I mean, it was just a lot. And I'm thinking to myself, where was I at when this thing was going on? And so I felt like what I was seeing, the reason that Black people like superhero movies is because we don't get a lot of justice. We don't get a lot of justice. We have a sense of fairness that we don't receive. And that particular day, even though it was real life, it wasn't a movie. It seemed like the justice that they do in the movies against people that do wrong was done in life. And even though it seemed like we shouldn't have been so happy about it, I'm not happy about the violence, but I am.
No, we don't condone that.
No.
But the thing is, it was the justice part. I mean, How far do we let you go? How many cheeks do we have to turn? I'm not trying to be funny or nothing. Why we gotta cater to your how you feel when you think it's okay to break the laws and disregard everybody that's not you?
Yeah, that's so good. And the way that you talked about, that we like superhero musics. We like superhero movies. And that's why, we just loved, Black Panther. And, the sense of Wakanda and how, all is justice. Now, what I didn't like about Black Panther was that at the end, we decided to share our, what was that called, Jamel? That super potent, whatever that chemical was,
I know what you mean.
What was it called, Michael? Vibranium. I knew my husband, he loves all the superhero movies. So the vibranium, why would we share our vibranium with the rest of the world? Why would we do that? Well, we're super benevolent. We just are. So after years of pent-up anger, right? Thank you, Jamel. After years of pent-up anger, right? This contained rage, then it's like, usually when things happen to us, we're expected to just sit back and go, and after it's all over, we get no justice, and we're just expected to go, oh, well, it's okay, we'll get over it, and just keep containing the rage and keep on pressing it down and internalizing it and keeping
gotten over it.
I'm sorry?
We haven't. Over it.
But when we show our anger and get upset, then the stereotypical, oh, they're just a bunch of savages and hoods and thugs. And it doesn't matter what happened to us in the beginning, right? Doesn't matter. It's always, they don't know how to contain themselves and they don't have any class and they're just ghetto. And this is how Black people are. And I think and they don't have any self-control, right? And I just think that this was one day when all of that just came to the surface. One of the things my husband was saying, Pastor Michael was saying, is that it was no accident that this took place where it took place, because at the end of the day, what it's doing is it's unearthing all this racial angst and racial history in that region that people have tried to bury. In fact, when this happened, do you know that they were saying, oh, this is a really isolated incident?
It's funny.
Yes and no. Yes and no. Right.
You know what? I just really want to go back really quickly with Janelle saying something about the movies. And I remember watching Roots and not liking the end of it when they tied him to the tree and it was going to hit him and said, no, don't do it. And not saying I'm condoning violence. I'm just talking about how we have that pent up rage.
Yes.
And then watching Django, and then, when he got whipped, it's like, yes, it's about time. And it's not about, and trust me, I am not talking about let's whip, let's fight, let's eye for an eye. It's nothing like that. It's the relief of just us getting justice. And because we don't get that, our men are getting beat, our children are getting beat. There's no, and life is not fair. I know that, but if you have a system set up, it has to serve everyone, not just a group of people. It has to serve everyone. And that's why I think everybody was so happy and just can exhale about this whole situation. It's not condoning violence at all.
Right. But I know a lot of people are saying you're going to mess around and find out today. But I do get that. And I also get what as an expert in healing the wounds of American slavery, right? And having written the book, what I also get is that it's interesting how we have such a hard time unifying around positive efforts. Like, it's not impossible, but a lot of times we have a hard time unifying because there's the crabs in the bucket and the jealousies and the power trips and the, whatever that is, the wounds. But that this particular incident unified us around our common wound of contained rage.
Yes.
And how it's interesting, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't know any other race of people in America in particular who look at a brother or a sister getting beat up, right, or wounded in some way, and that we would risk our lives in perilous situations to help that person, even though we don't know them. That's still my brother. That's still my sister. They, they got my same skin color. These white folks are jumping them. I'm going to go take care of this. Because as far as I know, now I do know that the employees of the ship, the employees of the riverboat, they definitely were the ones who were standing up there, like in a row, like the Avengers getting ready to go and make their citizens arrest of these white men on the boat. But there were other men who just came from every direction once that brother threw up that black hat. Which, by the way, people were saying that's our new signal, right? Throw up the black hat if you're really in trouble. Come get me, come help me. Once that black hat was thrown up and they understood that this brother was in trouble, a lot of them didn't know him from Adam.
Yeah.
And they came to help him. And so it's just interesting how in perilous times, and even in not necessarily so perilous times, we will take care of each other. But then there are other times when we're infighting.
Yeah.
So, it's interesting how the wounds worked out this time. Like they actually unified the people that contained rage. Like, we're not taking this today. We're not taking it. This is it. And it just came up and out. It wasn't like they had a meeting, They didn't go into a side room or anything. They just knew that today is the day. So I just found that interesting.
I think the reason it was like that is when people discount the spiritual aspects of things. We're talking injustice. We're talking that particular place. We're talking about it was supposed to be a chill day where everybody was enjoying themselves and everything. And all it takes is one displeased person of the mainstream who's in control of everything to ruin everything for everybody around.
Because of privilege.
And the thing was, I think all that's the spiritual aspects of that of just any type of injustice, because I hate injustice in any form, whether it's us or anybody. I don't like injustice. It angers me because when you see it, it's like, why are you doing? Why? Why are you doing this? And you want to be able to help the person that's experiencing the injustice, but the thing is, a lot of times we're powerless to do so. We don't have any power, and if we exercise the power, we're going to be on the same end of the hook as the person that we went over there to help.
Yes.
Very interesting. Very interesting. And that was one of the things that I thought about too, is we had Black officers who showed up on that scene, right? Black officers showed up on that scene. And how would that have been different had white officers shown up on that scene? So there's something in the Black officers too that were calling forth justice. And to the point where when these Black men lined up and were getting ready to make their move, the Black officers were standing there with their hands on their hips. Like, oh, well, here they come.
That's just like the white officers when their people are
exactly
out, have their hands on their hip, looking
exactly,
and oh well,
turning their head. Remember, it's I don't see yours if you don't see mine. And so I'm not saying that it was a good thing or a bad thing. I'm just pointing out what happened is that the Black officers were there. They had guns, they had tasers, they had pepper spray, they had all the same weapons and equipment, if you will, that the white officers have when they show up. But the Black people did not. The Black officers did not attack these people. The white officers, I believe, would have done. There's a comment here. I'm a white person who acknowledges the fatal outcome of the wounds left untreated. I am seeing that as the healing the wounds of American slavery movement rises in this country, we will see more and more of the horror of the untreated wounds and the descendants of the white slaveholders. And that's true. Thank you, whoever the Facebook user is. That is absolutely true. And the thing about the thing about it is, the reason we're going to see more and more uprising and more of these wounds surfacing in the DNA of the whites as well as the blacks is because it's being forced to the surface, because the truth is coming to the surface. And what does Genoa say? The lie can only stand until the truth shows up.
Yes, indeed.
As my mama said, what can you do with the truth but be with it? So many hateful spiritual entities flying around. You said it. Thank you, user. You said it. So many. But at the end of the day, it's like all of this has to come to the surface.
Yes.
And I agree with my husband. There's no accident that this occurred where it occurred. It could have been anywhere.
Anywhere.
But it was right at this historical landmark where the enslaved had literally been brought onto the shore, paraded down Commerce Street, and sold away from their families. And so it's just absolutely like a boil at this point. It's got to come to the surface. I mean, it kind of started with the George Floyd situation,
yes,
to an extent, but then a lot of people backtracked. They backtracked because of their fears. And so, yeah, you're right. It's being surfaced. It's coming to the surface. We thank God for that, as painful as it is. Yep, like a lamp to boil, as painful as it is. One of the things, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I just want to let you, well, that's fine. You know what? I think the reason all of this, the book, Healing the Wounds of American Slavery, is so important for this knowledge, because it is in there. A lot of us don't know that we are still living with this DNA that was passed on to us. Why are we acting the way we're acting? Why are white people acting the way they're acting? There is a reason. People are not just crazy. This is in our DNA. And Healing the Wounds of American Slavery sums it up just beautifully. So that's the reason why I'm so glad that this book is written, so we can finally get the knowledge, because without knowledge, you have no power. So you you just have to get this book. And I didn't want to say that right now, but get this book.
Okay. And when you know better, you can do better, right? When you know better, you can do better. There have been so many people, I tell you, they come up to me, they write to me, their reviews on Amazon. It's like, this book is on point. And I can't even take credit for it. I promise you I can't, because it came to me in a download. It was a download. It wasn't like I'm projecting what I think. I'm just telling you what I know based on my experience. You're very good. I guess you must have read my notes, Rosemarie. Because I have a note here that says,
tell them to get the book.
No, not to get the book, but yes, do that. But it says it's important that we understand why these people were so unified in that moment. It's important for us to understand that it was a unification of that wound. It's a common wound that we all share on the side of the descendants of the enslaved. It's that, our ancestors, they went through some of the most horrific inhumane conditions that you can imagine, but they couldn't do anything about it. They couldn't fight back. They couldn't pick up a chair. They couldn't attack. All they could do was swallow it. Sure, there were those that rebelled. I mean, let's just not act like we were all just, wusses running around and nobody wanted to attack. Nobody wanted to rebel. Nobody wanted revenge. They did, and some did. Many did. But the vast majority, because of the institution that they were trapped in, they couldn't. And so they had to swallow it. What happens when you swallow it? The same thing that happened to, what's his name? The brother, Damien. Captain Damien on the ship. Captain Damien Pickett. They said that this brother, the reason that his co-workers came after these white people so fiercely is because they knew him and they knew that he had a medical condition. Guess what the medical condition was? Two things: hypertension which a lot of Black men have hypertension, a lot of
Yeah.
Black people, and diabetes.
Yes.
Both, people say that that's from, eating the wrong foods and all of that. No, those are heart conditions. Those are conditions of emotional and spiritual abuse
And stress.
and
stress.
stress, which
Stress
comes
kills.
out of that abuse. Right.
Stress kills.
That's why it's important that we unpack why. Why did we all gang up? Why did we all come together?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I thought, and it is so funny. When you were talking about the ones that there was a lot that rebelled, and then we don't know what happened. We don't know their stories, and we don't know what happened to them. They're just gone. We don't have their stories at all.
That's right.
Yeah, and the thing is, those of us that are left, that are here, and we have a. I want to describe it as it's not crabs in the bucket, but it looks like it now because we're not in the same situation. But when because of the stuff, the trauma that we've all gone through collectively as a group, when we see somebody getting out there, getting ready to say, yeah, you better do this, and yeah, and you'd be like, we want you to be. It's kind of like a mother protecting, but we're not. But at that point, now it's not protection. We're stopping them from because we don't have any real leaders.
Right.
Every time a leader rises up, they get rid of them.
Right. We're suppressing their ability to protect themselves and to defend themselves and to claim their own form of justice is what we're doing. But we know that we have to sometimes do that because otherwise they'll end up dead. Yeah. I mean, it's just like in slavery, when a mother with a great, strong, intelligent son is telling the master that he's not really all that, he's lazy, he's, or whatever, because they don't want their son taken away from them and sold off.
Right.
And so that's the protection that, they're providing. But at the same time, like Auntie Genoa said, we see that as a form of protection, but it's kind of a slippery paradigm because on the one hand is protection, on the other hand is stifling their ability to protect themselves, because what contained rage is literally you're being abused, you're being attacked, you're being demeaned, you're being misjudged, you're being falsely accused. All this is piling up on you, physical abuse, emotional abuse, and you can't do anything about it. And it's our God-given right to protect our well-being, to protect our space. But if you can't, then it causes mental illness and all kinds of things. And so it's just, it's a really good example. This has been a really good example of, because as I said, there's so much to unpack. We won't be able to do it in an hour, but we can begin to unpack it. Right. Someone here says, if our Black women and men stick together, we could really make a change. We're very powerful when we have each other's backs. I completely agree. And that's why I do the work that I do, because it is my hope that I can give us hope that if we can start to really, like we're doing now, really get down into the roots of these wounds. What is it really? What's its characteristic? What's its personality? How does it operate in the world? Just like we have the textbook example with the riverboat dock situation, right? Of what contained rage looks like when it's unleashed, because it has no choice but to go kaboom. It's either going to explode outwardly or it will implode and cause illness and disease. And then to the listener's point or the viewer's point, we turn into infighting. And especially happens with Black men and Black women. There's a scene in the book where I explain what it looks like, or give kind of a fictional example of what it looked like with a Black male and Black female relationship, right? And you'll have to get the book to go through the whole thing. But essentially, at the end of the day, you know, a Black man's top values to himself, his spiritually ingrained values, right? Whether he chooses them or not, they are spiritually ingrained, is my opinion, that to protect and provide and to create an environment where everyone in his household, everyone in his community, and everyone in his environment as he goes into the world has the room to live out their God-given desires.
Yeah.
He provides that environment. The woman's is to be protected and provided for, and to give her creativity and the desires of her heart to her family, her community, and her world to make it what it is intended to be. When they were stifled from being in those God-given roles, then that's where they start turning on each other, because who was going to turn around and turn on Massa?
Exactly.
That would be a fatal decision in a lot of cases.
And you know what? Exactly. You know what? It's the things that we have to go through, just like you were saying, you know, it's just going to blow up. And because we have to have the talk with our young men, you know, with not just our young men, with our children, we have to have a talk, you know, to save their lives. We've always been, you know, protective. Oh, you know, this old saying was, I need to know that you're all right, because I don't want to know that you're in the alley beat up or cut up somewhere. You know, it's always been that protection because of the fear, one of the wounds, because of the fear that we're thinking that somebody is going to take our family away. It is in the DNA. It's there without question. And okay.
I do. When I was living in Arizona, I was around my grandson. He's 19 now. But I used to talk to him all the time about life situations and everything, and conducting himself out in public and everything. Because when I see my grandson, but when other people see him, they see a young Black male, right? And he's very bright, very articulate. I mean, and he thinks outside the box, just like his mother, my daughter. They think outside the box. It's just, I always find it amazing when I talk to him about different things. But one day he was in the neighborhood, and a neighbor came out and basically in a threatening manner was saying all kinds of nonsense to him, you know, wanting to pick a fight with him. And he told me he had two things that he was in his mind. He wanted to either respond, but he said then at the back of his mind, he heard my voice.
Oh.
He heard my voice, all the talks that we had, and he chose to ignore it and go about his business.
I love that. And you know what? I love that story. Somebody in the comments was bringing up the Willie Lynch letter. And they had said John Lynch, but hey, we all make mistakes. It is in the book. I talk about the Willie Lynch letter. And what I want to say about that is two things. The first thing is, we're not sure that there was a man named Willie Lynch. I've done the research all the way down to the absolute nth degree, like dry bones. I'm scraping dry bones looking for this thing. And we don't know that the man literally existed and wrote the letter. That's the first part. The second part is, the reason we don't know is because the language of the Willie Lynch letter was written in a different time frame. Because of the language, we know it was written in a different time frame than this would have been produced. It was supposed to have been produced. But what we do know, beautiful viewer, I'm so glad you brought this up. What we do know is that what is in the Willie Lynch letter is an ironclad, airtight plan of how to perpetuate hatred and division between Black people all over the diaspora, but particularly starting with American slavery. One of the things is the caste system of, you know, Black Speaking of dark skin, like dark skin against light skin, the old against the young, the women against the men, the daughters against the mothers, the fathers against the sons. And yes, we do see a lot of that playing out, but I don't want you to feel hopeless about that, because once you know better, you can do better. And it wasn't enough just to know the system that had been created to keep us divided. It's also super important to know specifically what those wounds are that still exist as a result of what was initiated against us, right? And that's what's in the book. And so there are 10 main wounds. I'm not going to go through them all, but trust me, you want to know what they are. Because once you know what they are, for example, this contained rage, once you know what they are, then you can start to look at, how do I get this out of my system without hurting myself, someone I love, or someone else, and get myself into trouble? Because that's what happens a lot out here in these streets.
Right.
These streets, as I always call them. Is, you know, this stuff is bubbling up, it's boiling. The jealousy leads to death. That is the end goal of jealousy, for example. The jealousy wound, crabs in a bucket and all that, the end goal of that wound is to cause death. Yes. Death of a person, death of dreams, death of relationships. It causes death. Once you know that, when you see it come up, you can do something about it. But if you don't know it, and we just continue to let this perpetual system of the, you know, the institution of slavery, the Willie Lynch letter, and all these things that were projected against us, we let that continue to recycle and recycle, it won't stop. But here's one of the things that the Willie Lynch letter said that they don't tell you. One of the things that the Willie Lynch letter says is that it's going to take a powerful phenomenon to break the velocity, the momentum, right, yes, of this system that is perpetuated in the Willie Lynch letter. It's going to take a phenomenal event, right? And that event is occurring right now, because you've never seen Black people waking up at the rate that we're waking up right now. That's why they have to keep media perpetuating us as, I'm just going to say it, pimps and hoes and, you know, ne'er-do-wells in whatever form that comes in. You know, like, we're just nothing, we're no good, we just like to infight, all the stereotypes, perpetuating all the stereotypes. But there are a lot of us who are awake and waking up even more. And those of us who are awake, we need to do exactly what the aunties are doing right now, right? We need to continue to expose it. Right. Truth and exposure. That's the answer. Truth and exposure. Because once you know better, you do better. You can do better.
Yeah. I totally agree. Oh, this is so good. This is so good. And people being in the matrix, because I know after coming out of it, you learn a respect of your people, because you're no longer ignorant to what is happening to us, what has happened to us, and what's happened to everyone. You won't be ignorant, and you'll feel different. And that's what happened to me. I woke up and I'm like, wow. And I looked at my brother and sister differently. I didn't toot up my mouth when I saw them being handcuffed and being thrown in jail, because I know why. I understand it now.
Right. And we're not trying to give Black people an excuse or let us off the hook in any way. I mean, just because of what happened to us. I mean, it happened to our ancestors. It got passed down to us. It's in our DNA, but that doesn't mean that we have to act on those wounds. Once we know they're there and what to do about those. And we are in the process right now of creating work. I mean, we've been doing workshops for a long time, but these powerful experiences where you get the opportunity to do experiential projects and activities, and you're in the room with other people who really care about what's happening to Black people and how to make a difference with how we are going to handle what's inside of us. We're taking responsibility for what's inside of us. No, we don't take on the responsibility as in we deserved it. No way. But it's here. And so what are we going to do about it? And so though, just keep your eyes and ears open. It's definitely coming up. We have the book on Amazon and the Audible book in Audible. We also have a book called The Path that is kind of, okay, so if Healing the Wounds of American Slavery shows us what it is, then The Path shows us how to get through it to the other side. And so it's already done. It just needs to be published at this point. So it's not like we're hopeless and we have no answers.
Right.
Now, what my book does is it definitely doesn't try to give you a pat cookie cutter answer as to what to do, because for each individual, it's going to be different, because we're not a monolithic people. We're all individuals with individual experiences coming from individual backgrounds. And so, but I'll tell you what, the information in the book, it's going to get you no matter who you are. Right?
Yes.
Auntie Rose? Now,
Yes.
tell them what you meant. Tell them what you meant when you said you came out of the matrix.
I can't, because, and a lot of us do this, and I think we don't do it on purpose. It's just being society throwing things, and the negative talk and the negative news that comes out, and the spills that's all about us. So you hear that all the time about, oh, they're tearing up the streets. This is riots here, and then Black people are responsible. 95% of Black men are doing this and in prison, and just a negative talk. So that affects you all your life. This is what you're hearing. So my thing was, and not on purpose, it's like anytime I saw us caught up in what it looked like a wrongdoing because of the narrative, I'm like, here we go again. And after reading the book, and I'm like, oh, this is the reason, because of the wounds, because of what we've been through, because of what we've been passed down, because we've had contained rage. We wasn't able to allow it to come out and tell people what to do, because we couldn't. Our life was on the line. You was going to be cut up. You're gonna be raped. You're gonna be dipped in oil, cut off body parts. There's so many things that could happen that was horrible. And you have to shut up. But after, and I know how that feels. And real quick, because I was at unemployment office, just looking for a job like everybody else. This is some years ago, and I was the only one in there. And that doesn't happen. So I just walked up to the lady, and she happened to be a white woman. I said, "Excuse me, ma'am," and she said, "Sit down and take a seat." Now I need a job, so okay, I sat down. Maybe she was doing something, but she pulled out her fingernail file and started filing her nails.
What?
So here I am, contain rage. Why is she doing this? I need to get this off my list because so she said, I need you to take a number. So there was, I did a number. It was 1, and I sat, and she continued to file her nails. And once she blew the dust practically in my face, if I was close enough, she said 1. So people know what I'm talking about. People can feel that contained rage about what we've been going through all of our lives, our grandparents, our great-grandparents, our people around us. It's no wonder that people jumped off that boat, that boy swam over there, because we're tired. And you don't know how it feels if you haven't gone through it. You won't know. But I woke up, after I read this book, I had more respect. And I understood. And that knowledge came to me and said, okay, my people we're not crazy out here.
No.
We're not doing anything.
No, we're full of wounds. Full of hurt, full of wounds. And one of our thank you for sharing that, Auntie Rose. That was beautiful. I just couldn't have said it any better. And that was a perfect example of how it still carries over to today. It's not like, oh, that just happened a long time ago. You people just need to pull yourselves up by the bootstraps. There's nothing wrong here. No, there's plenty wrong here. One of our viewers is saying it's not as though the attacks and programs against us stop. That's right. We have been and still are continually attacked like no other people. There is no justice for us, just us.
Yeah.
That's true. And one of the things I want to say about that too is, isn't it interesting that it's not just physical attacks? It's what, I don't like going into all like the lingo of the era and all of that. But one of the words that I really do appreciate is microaggressions.
Oh, yeah.
And that's exactly what was happening to you, Auntie Rose. And you know what? Sometimes that's worse than a physical attack. It's a psychological attack.
Yes.
And it's humiliating.
Yes.
And it's degrading.
Yes, it is.
And it just hurts. Because there's nothing you can do but internalize it. Now, if you can, like they did at the Brawl, jump out there and throw some hands, that's one thing. And that's one thing I appreciate. But if it's another if you have to internalize it. One thing I appreciated about that is that it kind of took us back to before people were pulling guns on each other all the time. It's like, let's just throw these hands. And you know what? You don't have to die for what you did, but I'm going to teach you a lesson. And then once your bruises heal up, maybe you'll be a better person. Maybe you won't try that next time.
But
maybe
I just want to say real quick,
mess around and find out. They're saying another word, right? But maybe you won't have to mess around and find out next time.
Real quick, I'm sorry. I just want to know, did any of you feel what I felt about that any moment somebody could pull out a gun? And not us.
I didn't feel that.
Okay, good.
I didn't feel that. And I don't know why I didn't feel that, because it was very likely, right? I mean, hey, but part of that, like I said, I'll circle back to what I said in the beginning. There were Black officers there who live there. These, when they look up, that's their people. And I'm not saying there aren't rogue Black officers. There are, because they've internalized that they've internalized the same energy as our oppressors, right? Yeah. And they're trying to impress their superiors and others around them, right? By being just as rough on these, Black people as they are, so. And somebody said, I'm sorry, they said, and it was a good lesson. It was. And did they get it? Or are some of them the type that will go away and still say, those Black people, they just came out there and they just attacked us and it wasn't even worth all that. And they should have just called the police. Yeah, but
there are some there that will say that them crying ladies at the end after they was throwing hands when they can get away with it, and then when the police officer showed up,
isn't that always the case? What was interesting too? What was interesting is, okay, the man with the striped, his name is Reggie Gray, right? The man with Reggie Gray, the man with the folding chair, the famous folding chair, when he went over and hit the woman over the head after she was already down. DY is so crazy. He's going to say they should make a meme that says, this is the, what did he say? He said, if have a seat was a person, because she is having a seat. And I'm sure my husband is going to be so upset that I'm laughing, but there's a person who's humorous to me. I'm sorry. So she's sitting there. Wasn't funny that she got hit on the head. I didn't think so. But when he hit her on the head, the Black officers take him over, put him face down, and now they're trying to put his hands behind his back to cuff him up. Now here comes Karen to come over and interfere and try to get some licks in on the Black man while he's down. Well, the Black officer reaches up and pushes her down to the ground. So, like I said, sometimes you see a person with the same skin color. I'm not saying that all skin folk are kinfolk. I'm not saying that, but there are situations where you see another Black person in distress or under extreme injustice, and you'll be inclined to do something about it. And that officer was obviously inclined. So there's someone who said, I didn't feel the gun in that situation. I didn't either. I was concerned when the police arrived, but appreciated how it was handled. I really appreciate how it was handled. Like I said, why can't we go back to the days where we just duke it out. Nobody has to die over a
Yes.
lesson or a situation like that. So I'm going to say that our hour is coming to a close, but we will be following this conversation as it unfolds and just gleaning all the lessons out, because it wasn't just contained rage that showed up there. You know, as the author of this book, I could literally go down a checklist of everything that I saw, who I saw it in that it was behaving in exactly the way that it's researched and written in the book, exactly like textbook. So we will come back and we'll discuss it further. I want to give each one of the aunties about 30 seconds each to a minute, just to wrap up and, you know, say what's on your mind. Tell the people how you feel or whatever it is you want to say.
Okay, so what I want to say was really quickly with the boat, that's how I felt like the gun may have come out when they went to the boat. But I agree, we live to fight another day. So just use them hands, you know, that's what we have to do. We don't have to kill each other. We don't.
We don't. We don't. Thank you, Auntie Rosemary and Auntie Genoa.
Well, one thing I was going to say is this was quite interesting. I hope it doesn't go down in, you know, how when stuff happens and you have teachable moments and it can grab a momentum and kind of shift some things, and somebody might insert something in there and drive it another way. But I hope it stays where the lesson that is supposed to be in. And the thing is, just knowing about the wounds and everything, it just makes you more empathetic towards people. You know what I'm saying? Because literally, on both sides, they can't help it because they don't know. But once they know, then they're responsible for their knowledge.
That's right. Once we know better, we can do better. You're very welcome, viewers. And I just want to say in closing, thank you so much for showing up. Thank you for your time, your efforts, and just communicating with us. We love it when we have great participation, because we are a village and we don't consider ourselves like different generations can't come together. We are intergenerational here. We have from 18 years old to 91 years old, you know, and we just really want to bring everyone to the table to give their perspective, to bring, you know, their comments, their joys, their pains, their everything to the table. And we have one more comment here. I didn't know if this was actually Reggie on the radio or someone was making a joke, but in the interview, Reggie said that after being asked why he picked up a chair, he said he didn't know. He was in a daze and thought about Rosa Parks having to give up her seat. So he decided to have that lady take a seat. Mm-hmm. Very interesting. I'm going to say that was an alleged comment because we just don't know. We just don't know. But you know what I do believe? I do believe that he was in a daze.
I do.
I believe
Me
that
too.
a lot of people are out there in a daze, because when these wounds react, they will have you do things that you never expected that you would do. And on that, thank you. Thank you for the compliment. We believe it was an amazing show too, because you were here. And we hope you'll come back next week when we once again bring up another amazing topic. And in the meantime, be blessed by the book, and we'll see you again. Bye.
Bye.
Hey, Auntie.